Hi everyone, today let's do a quick preview of tomorrow's FOMC.
Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started.
So the FOMC is tomorrow, and I really don't think that they're going to do very much. They say there's a lot to do, but they might not end up doing much in terms of monetary policy, and I too tend to agree with this. Markets are basically priced in with the FOMC's dot plot, looking at 3 cuts this year, and I do think that they are going to stick to that. We have seen some rougher inflation data to the upside, generally not what you would want to see, but it's still hovering at reasonable levels, lower than the Fed interest rate, and I do think that they are still going to cut this year. I think the soonest that they will do it is July, and right now it's about a 50-50 chance between June or July. We talked about that in yesterday's video, and I think they're going to stick to that messaging, or potentially a little bit more hawkish. Even if they're not more hawkish and they just stick to that messaging, I think that might be a little bit bearish for markets, but it's going to be interesting to see if they make any adjustments to those 3 cuts this year, and then if there are any adjustments to that dot plot going out past this year into next year. And you can see that here we're currently looking at 3 cuts this year, 4 in 2025 and 3 more in 2026, and then potentially 2 more in the longer term, cutting the rate back down to 2.5%. I think that is pretty optimistic. Of course, inflation could actually come down and then maybe we do see those cuts, but right now we're just not seeing it. And I think we might see some of those longer term dot plots raised up a little bit. We get the 3 cuts this year and then potentially hold in that range until something breaks or the unemployment rate starts to go a little bit higher potentially. We haven't seen those things yet, but we are still in a holding pattern. And that is what I'm looking for going into this meeting, especially with the economic outlook where it is right now. The market has been quite good. The economy has also been decent. The unemployment rate did tick up a little bit, but we're still creating jobs quite quickly relative to expectations. And overall, there's just not a good reason to start cuts. Moving over to fear and greed, you can see we're still at a 71. No changes here for momentum and strength. Breadth still hovering. You can see it's actually been flat here for a couple of days. Put call ratio still in regular greed. Volatility did not move very much here today, still in neutral. Safe haven demand ticking back towards greed, interesting. And then you see junk bond demand, still no changes here. So really no changes across the broader market, even with the swings that we saw in the shorter time frames. Moving over to seasonality, you can see the 19th was expected to be generally flat, and we did get a little bit of an uptick, maybe moving into that 20th. We'll see how that plays out for the FOMC tomorrow. But right now, this thesis still holding in there, even the election year thesis still holding in there, generally flat here into the end of the month, with a potential dip on the Tuesday session of next week. Moving over to the calendar, you can see today was supposed to be bullish, and it was. Wednesday, Thursday, nothing on the calendar. In terms of bullish and bearishness, obviously FOMC tomorrow is going to be massive. And then there is a ton of data coming out on Thursday, and then still a bullish expectation here for the Friday session. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see we did get some positive data here for housing. Housing starts up quite a bit. Previous number also revised up. Definitely looks good there. 20-year bond auction, slightly lower than the previous read, but it's good to see building permits and housing starts doing better. And then tomorrow, there's really nothing on the calendar besides the FOMC, and we already covered that. And then looking at Thursday, don't forget we do have a ton of economic data coming out between 8:30 and 9:45. Existing home sales also interesting at 10 o'clock. Fed balance sheet, and then another vice chair, and then the Fed vice chair speaking at noon to try to do any kind of damage control that comes out during the FOMC. I don't expect that to happen, but just keep it on your calendar. Moving over to max pain, still looking at 512 here for max pain, and then 515.50 is where we ended up finishing, right at that first call wall. Understand that I just can't imagine that we're going to push through these calls. We'll see if any of these come off at the end of tomorrow's session, as they're probably mitigating downside risk going into the FOMC, but really no other changes here. Put call ratio still high at 2, 1.36 million options. And then I just want to highlight for tomorrow's session, you can see the first call wall here is 520. Understand that there's basically no options in the market here for tomorrow, but 520 interesting, and then 525 very interesting. I wouldn't expect to get above those levels, but that would still give you about a 1% upside potential if we did end up around 520 and then come back down for that Friday session. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps here, you can see we dipped early in the pre-market, ended up holding a higher low, did not test 509.77, and then as we started to rally here into the beginning of the session, that looked super bullish for me. You can see higher low setup, did not even test support, and then rallied through, broke my level here, 513.27, and then finished above this previous high for yesterday on the closing basis. It looks like we're retesting a little bit after hours here, but that looked super bullish and it continues to look super bullish. And then on the daily chart, you can see we tested that trend line, tested the 9 EMA, bounced and rallied. Everything looks strong here. We'll see if that can hold through the FOMC, but right now everything looks good. Moving over to the tasty charts here on the SPY on the daily, you can see we did not see a volume spike. We did not see the MACD continue to roll up with price action. So that's a little bit bearish. It's worth noting that the MACD on this indicator, the volume weighted MACD, has not been super effective on this melt up. It is melting higher, and this is a momentum indicator, so we're not seeing a ton of momentum there. I do want to talk the 4-hour chart here for a moment. You can see the volume weighted MACD on the 4-hour, however, tested that 89 EMA, tested it again here today, broke higher, waiting to see if we can take out those ATR stops on the 4-hour, sitting around 517 or so. Right now this looks bullish. We did see a step higher on the volume there. Not super aggressive compared to the down moves that we had been seeing. Would have liked to see that volume be a little bit stronger, but it was decent. And then looking at the hourly chart, you can see bullish momentum, some volume coming through. ATR stop sitting down around 510.63. You can see we took those out here on the 6 o'clock candle yesterday, came back, tested that level, and then rallied off of it. So that's a bullish indicator. Like I said, everything on the shorter time frames does look pretty bullish going into the FOMC. Medium time frames look a little bit more neutral. Moving over to the NASDAQ, similar thesis, fell pre-market, rallied throughout the session, took out my trend line here on the hourly chart, did not do it here on the daily chart, so a little bit of mixed signaling there. And zooming in, you can see we're still below the 9 EMA, but we're above the 21, momentum rolling towards bullish here on the regular MACD. RSI mixed signals above the 50 line, but below the SMA. So again, shorter time frames, slightly bullish, longer time frames, still neutral at resistance. It is up a little bit after hours, which is good. And we'll see how that continues to move. I did stay long going into tomorrow because we did get above that trend line and held. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in tomorrow's session. We're above all the short-term EMAs and SMAs as well as VWAP here on the hourly chart as well. Moving over to the NASDAQ on the tasty charts, similar thesis here. You can see no volume on the day. MACD continues to roll towards bearish even though we got that bullish push here today. 8 EMA at 438.44. We did close above that level, so we're above all the EMAs and SMAs on this chart. And then moving over to the 4-hour chart, again, similar thesis. You can see that higher low setup rally, some volume coming through. Volume weighted MACD looked bullish on that second candle of the day, which was very powerful. We're right into the middle of this range. You want to see this push to that ATR resistance, which would be around 442.50 or so. Right now, we're still in bearish conditions on the 4-hour chart. And then looking at the hourly here, you can see we did take out that bullish ATR stop in the pre-market, and now we're coming up to resistance on the bearish ATR stop, which is a little bit concerning. I would have liked to see that get taken out and go back into bullish conditions. You can see a similar move like this where we took out that ATR, retested, and then we ended up going lower. So something like that could happen if the FOMC comes back a little bit more hawkish. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, you can see the Russell was up 0.42. Momentum did not move, which is interesting. If we get another bullish day, I would expect momentum to flip there. And it's actually been a pretty decent decline from the highs. From top to bottom, that's about a 5% move, so pretty decent to be honest. And it seems like we're set to go higher off of that low. We tested the low from Thursday of last week, and then we bounced from that level. We're still below the 21 and VWAP there, which is concerning. But overall, it looked decent, and you can see it here on the hourly chart. Dipped pre-market, rallied aggressive, got above all the short-term EMAs. Momentum fading a little bit here after hours, but that's to be expected in my opinion. And then looking at the Dow, very bullish, 0.82, momentum rolling towards bullish, RSI breaking above the SMA. Volume was strong on that day as well. Came right up to that next trend line. So ended up holding 387.77. That was the level. Tested it again and rallied through. So looks very clean. Next resistance here would be 392.45. And then on the Russell here, resistance at trend around 204. Moving over to the MAG7 here on the daily chart. As you can see, the MAG7 is still very much in charge of markets. The MAG7 was up about 0.5%. Momentum rolling towards bullish, RSI ticking higher, but still below the SMA. And you can see it did wick all the way down to the 21 in VWAP, and that trend line bounced well above all of those back into the middle of the range. So we'll see what happens here. Everything on this says it is still set to go higher. And if it breaks out of this consolidation and pushes up to that trend, that's going to be a very powerful move. That would give you a price target of around 376 or so. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, we talked about Apple looking bullish, and it continues to look bullish, 1.36 to the upside. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Still finding some resistance at VWAP and the 21 EMA, as well as my level here, 176.15, and it finished there almost to the penny, 176.08. Didn't quite get to the trend line that it tested yesterday, which was concerning, but overall this still looks a little bit bullish despite the downtrend. And then looking at Tesla, couldn't hold all those gains from yesterday, but momentum still says bullish. RSI holding above the SMA but below the 50 line, so a little bit mixed. Remember, the longer term thesis here is still move down, bear flag, move down, but we did get a little bit of a catalyst yesterday with some positive moves in the Model Y pricing. We'll see if that can catalyze us a little bit higher. Momentum says maybe, and that level would be 177.70, and then the 21 EMA at 184.71. Moving over to Microsoft and NVIDIA, you can see Microsoft up again here today, 0.98. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Current trend resistance up around 424. And NVIDIA positive on the day as well, 1%. Momentum still bearish. Volume still pretty high here coming off of their investor announcements yesterday. But really, it's been sideways chop since about 6 March, so we'll see what happens. Still has not gotten up and tested that trend line again here at 937 or so. And it would not shock me if this did sell off a little bit here tomorrow. However, Microsoft continues to look very bullish. Moving over to Pepsi and Alphabet, following up on yesterday's video, Pepsi did end up going higher here today, 0.32. Got a massive upgrade yesterday, rallying 4%, and then again here today, hit the trend line. We'll see if it can get above that. Really, it needs to hold this current level, get above the trend, potentially retest it, and then push to 176.75 or so. See if he can do it. It does seem possible. Pepsi has been down quite a bit from its highs, and the price target was up around that 190 level, so that would really just be back to the highs from July. And it does seem possible that Pepsi can get back there. And then looking at Google, massive announcement linking up with Apple yesterday. Couldn't hold all of those gains and was down just slightly, but still holding in there right at this level here. You can see kind of a neckline in there at this 147.90 area, or 148. Really, you want to see it get above 150.26, hold that level and then rally. Tested it yesterday, couldn't get there again today. Momentum still bullish, RSI still bullish, and I would expect it to go higher. The question is, how is it going to do it? Is it going to pull back a little bit more, find some support and then push through, or is it going to hold this level and then push straight through? Moving over to staples and discretionaries, both of these were positive on the day. Staples 0.37, right back to that trend line. It's been grinding along that for 3 days in a row now. Momentum still slightly bearish, RSI still below the SMA, but structure still bullish, back above the 9 EMA, so we'll see how that plays out. And then looking at discretionaries, you can see it was up 0.87, still holding that semi-support here. Momentum ticking towards bullish. RSI needs to get above the SMA. 21 EMA sitting at 180.93. If it can get above that 21 and VWAP, then we could see a push back to 185.36. And you can see we did break out, like I said. So overall, this does look like it could be set up to go higher. Higher low setup. Big confirmation out. We'll see how it goes from here. And then moving over to oil and gas and energy, these continue to rip higher, 1.29 and 1.14%. Both are overbought. Both have bullish momentum. Current price targets 154.13, and then energy here 192.80, 92.80. We'll see how that plays out. Energy a lot closer to that resistance. But right now, these both look super bullish. They've been on a run for a couple of weeks here, and it seems like they're set to go higher. Moving over to breadth, you can see we did get a little bit of a pop in breadth. We said it did hold yesterday, slight bullishness, and then we got a confirmation here today, closing on the highs on both of these charts. So that is quite bullish going into tomorrow's session. Again, FOMC is obviously going to determine direction, but this did look bullish for me. Markets looked like they were gaining strength into the mid-session. And sure enough, you can see that here now on breadth. Moving over to yields here, you can see yields did pull back from that resistance. Talked about the 200 SMA yesterday. Saw the doji at resistance, broke down a little bit here today. We also talked about how we were kind of priced in. 4.75 is 3 cuts from current level. And realistically, we'll probably be lower than that in 2 years based on the dot plot. So this could even trend a little bit lower, which should be bullish for markets. And then the 10-year, who knows where this could be, probably closer to that 4% level. And if both of those start to move down a little bit more, that should be bullish for equities. Moving over to the dollar here on the hourly and the daily, you can see we did go much, much higher overnight from about 9 o'clock all the way up until 4 o'clock. Big rally overnight. And then we gave some of that back during the session, but still positive on the day, 0.23, momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Broke above the 200, broke above my level here at 103.64. So the dollar looking strong up to that 144 EMA at 104.2. Obviously, this continuation is going to be based on the FOMC, but right now this definitely looks bullish. Moving over to bonds, you can see we actually had some decent movement here on JNK. 0.42% to the upside, momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Back above 94.82, we closed above it for the first time in a while, so that's very bullish. Looking to push up to that 95.30 area, and then looking at TLT, held the level at 92.82 after gapping above it. Momentum did not roll, but it seems like it could. 144 EMA is your support at 92.50, so critical level 92.50 and 92.82. Still below the trend line, but we did see that yields were starting to pull back, and I think TLT could bounce from this level, and we'll see how that plays out tomorrow in the FOMC. It is up a little bit after hours as well. Moving over to the VIX, you can see we continue to hold in this 55 EMA area. Tested it a couple days ago. We're right in that zone here again. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. If that 55 breaks and we start to push back towards 1275, that could be quite bullish for markets. But we're right in this zone, so continuing to watch this, and we'll see how it plays out tomorrow. Makes sense that it would be at support going into the FOMC. Moving over to my accounts, you can see I was pretty positive on the day, about $650 or so. You like to see it. Everything played well. IWM still holding that covered call. It's in a small loser here, but my max profit on this position is 203, so as long as it hangs out here, I'll make money. If it goes a little bit higher, I'll still make money. And then I can roll it out tomorrow, as that is at tomorrow's expiration. You can see it's down a little bit after hours. Not too bad, though. And then looking at the Qs, you can see it's actually up a little bit after hours. Made money there. I had sold the 437s for about $2, so got some money on the call and some money on the shares, so that's a best case scenario. And then I rolled both of those out here to 438 for around that 265, 268 area. So still looking to make a little bit of money tomorrow. Again, that gives me a max profit of about $400 tomorrow. And if markets fall, that gives me about $500 of protection to the downside. And then similarly here on the poor man's covered call, looking to make about $200 on that position. So if everything goes well, I should make about $700 tomorrow. We'll see how that plays out after the FOMC, but going into tomorrow, still bullish, but in the money on all of my protections here with these calls. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the charts or the FOMC statement tomorrow. Is he going to come in hawkish, or is it going to be a non-event? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this was financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.